Thank you all for being here, bright and early for the start of day 2. That's great to see you all. And you all look remarkably fresh, to be honest, which is surprising given the kind of night we had last night. And it was a great night, great fun. A lot of empty wine bottles and beer bottles around, which is great. Huge amount of conversation, really noisy, lots of things going on, lots of things happening in here and in the bar. I think I went to bed about 1:45 and there was still some of you up, you dirty stop-ups, but you all seem to have made it back, so that's great. So welcome to day 2. So today's a little bit shorter than yesterday because obviously we all need to get home. So we'll be finishing a bit earlier, and it's a bit different in flavour as well. I think we're going to dive a little bit more into some of the signals funding issues today. We're going to talk a little bit more about what the funding is for, give you a little bit of guidance. We have some fantastic supplier presentations from some of the big suppliers, but bringing innovation in as well. So we get to see that thing that we talked about in the guidance of you need to innovate. The innovation will be the difference between good and very good. So the fact that we have suppliers with their innovators is going to be really useful. And then we have a few other sessions as well, again, doing a little bit of kind of workshopping around the guidance and around what ITMF will look like, and a little bit of thinking about what's happened with TSOG and GLF. So it's a little bit more of a funding-focused day today. And I think that's useful because I think most of us in this room are interested in that, whether it's the local authority as a bidder or supplier, as someone that's hoping to make some funding out of that. So also make some business out of that. So I think it'll be useful to us all. So yesterday was a great day. We talked about an awful lot. We set up the morning session yesterday specifically to allow you to see the breadth of things that the DFT is doing. And I know it's quite easy, outside the sort of Westminster bubble, it's quite easy to think, well, this stuff's happening and maybe DFT is not doing much about it and there's things happening and what's government doing? Well, I think yesterday you got a real flavour for the breadth of things we're doing. And the breadth of specialists we have thinking quite detailed thoughts about challenges around communications, around AI, around future data. We are doing a lot of stuff. And the aim of yesterday really was to sort of think about that and give you a flavour of that. Not too much detail, but of a flavour. And now you have some names and faces you can contact if you want to know more about any of those subjects. And I would encourage you to do that. And of course, the TTF will remain the lens through which we push this. So the TTF website will continue to be the site through which we get access to a lot of that information. So just a few pieces of housekeeping before we start. Still no fire drill. So again, if you hear the fire drill, it's time to go. Follow the signs, car parks. So follow the fire signs. Yeah. So as Tim Vine once said, exit signs. God, they're on the way out, aren't they? I'm going to sell my hoovering. Am I going to sell my vacuum cleaner? It's only gathering dust. Thank you. Right, a couple of other things. Checkout is 11 a.m. So if you haven't checked out yet, please use the morning coffee break to do that. For local authority delegates who need to get back to either Nuneaton or Hinckley railway station, we will arrange taxis for you. Private sector, sorry, you've got to walk, but public sector, we'll arrange some taxis. But we need to know. We need to know before that. So if you want a taxi, if you can go to the front desk where you registered during the lunch break, then we'll sort out taxis for you. And the taxis will start to leave the front of the building at the end of the event, so 4:15. So if you want a taxi, go and sort that out. Yeah, I don't think anything else has changed. The toilets are still where they were yesterday, surprisingly. And I think that's really all we need to say about that. So here we go. So really, I just wanted to use this session to sort of round up some of the things we talked about yesterday and just try and maybe just sort of recover some of that ground again, because there's a lot of really interesting stuff that we talked about. And I think there are some themes that we can draw out of that. And one theme is that there are a number of areas where government realises it needs to act to secure the future of technology in transport. And I think there's this issue about what does government need to do. And as Michael made very clear yesterday, NPP is an example of that, where we absolutely see that we are not going to develop apps. We're not going to do that front-end stuff that app developers and Google and Microsoft are good at. Because we've all seen that sort of thing before. We've all seen the public sector build websites and apps and And generally, they look like they were built in a Polish shipyard. They're not elegant, they're not good to look at, they're very functional. That's not what we should do. And I think as we approach data and technology, we as a government, we're really trying to think, where do we need to intervene? Where are the blockers? Where are the places where the sector will not move forward unless we do something? What are the things that we as a national government only can do? And NPP, DTRO, DSIS are all examples of that. They're all examples of us saying there is a thing that needs to happen. We need to make parking more simple. Government is the one place where we can convene a platform to do that. And then others can develop apps and others can develop services and use that platform. But we need to do that bit. DTRO, we clearly need to have the rules of the road in a digital format. We clearly need to move away from a world where connected vehicles have to read road signs using a camera. They should be able to download that data and act upon it. And that can't happen while TROs are stored in filing cabinets or as PDF files. They have to be in a machine-readable digital format. Only government can really do that. We need to set the standards around that. It's then for the suppliers who supply the software that people already use to manage those TROs to implement it. It's for local authorities, maybe with our support to actually start to digitise their TROs. But we need to unblock that blockage there and move that forward. DSIS is another example. It still staggers me as a signals engineer that we've had NAPTAN for 20 years now. For 20 years, each bus stop in the UK has had a unique reference. And we know exactly how many bus stops there are. We know where they are. They've got a unique number. But we don't do that for traffic signals. We have no idea how many traffic signals there are in the UK. We have no idea where they all are. I think there's some highway authorities that don't know where all their signals are, to be honest. But as a country, we don't know where they all are. We don't have a numbering system for them. There's no common way of numbering a set of signals in Southend and a set of signals in Dumfries and Galloway, Rotherham, definitely not Rotherham. No chance in Rotherham. There's no way of numbering them in a way that means we don't get complex numbering systems and overlaps, and we need to do that. And DSIS will do that. And DSIS will also provide a way of describing signal operation and logic in a machine-readable, shareable way. Because again, if we want vehicles in the future, and we heard from Helmond, we heard about green light advice actually working, if we want that to happen, we've got to provide that information. We've got to give the vehicles an understanding of what the signals they're approaching are going to do, how many lanes there are, what happens in the right turn lane, when the pedestrians run, those kind of things. Now, you know, Tesla are quite clever. Other companies are quite clever. They can do a lot with technology. They haven't yet developed the technology to allow their vehicles to open a filing cabinet in the town hall and read a Topaz 2500 form. So again, we need a digital form of doing that, and DSIS will provide that. It will provide that digital form. We won't then go and use it. We're not going to take over coding signals data and doing what local authorities and suppliers do, because you can all do that. But we need to provide that opportunity. We need to remove that barrier. Now, of course, all this that we're doing, these detailed things that we're doing, opening up barriers, and you could say well, it all looks a bit scattergun and we're doing something with DTRO, we're doing something with signals, but they do all fit into a wider strategy. And we heard about Roads to Tomorrow, and we heard about this view that the fact that tomorrow will look very similar to today, we're just incremented by a few years. And Luton, happily or sadly, will look like Luton in 25 years' time. It won't look like somewhere else. We won't rebuild the road network. So having established that, and having started the work that Michael's doing, and having started to think about how we speak to authorities, how we speak to users and understand that, you can see that in that framework, where things like DTRO and NPP already fit. They are already saying, well, what do we need to do? You know, we're not going to go and repave the roads. We're not going to reline them all. We're not going to take all the traffic signs down and replace them with transponders, all that kind of stuff that we're clearly not going to do. But the things we are going to do are to remove some of the data barriers to better services. And doing the work now is setting the kind of the foundation, setting the playing field that will allow the future services that we describe through Roads to Tomorrow. It will allow them to develop and flourish. So it is all part of a strategy. And it's part of an even bigger strategy, because Matt yesterday told us about the DFT's thinking around data. Again, very important in the whole, because the data that we generate needs to sit in a much bigger environment of data. It needs to be thought about in a much broader sense, because the last thing we want to do is build more silos of transport data. And we need to share data not just in transport, but more widely. You know, if we hold data about, I don't know, about vehicles, then maybe that's shareable with other parts of our local authorities. Maybe that's shareable elsewhere. And we know that as you share data, within limits around privacy and GDPR, but as you share data, you form new linkages and you find new ways of amalgamating data and finding new intelligence. So it's clearly the thing to do. We clearly need a wide-ranging data strategy to allow us to do that, that not only references what we do, but references what other sectors do and builds that commonality of data. That kind of sets the high level of where we want to be, and from that you can see how we get down to some of the detail. But again, we heard from Michaela Nelson yesterday, and she told us about a lot of the work that DFT is doing around 2G and 3G. And again, this is an area where, well, this is coming. We know this is going to happen. We know this will happen, and we need to be prepared for that. And there's work happening there, the work that she's leading and others in the department are working on, that will help us ensure that as we build these new structures, as we move into a data-rich future, as we deliver more services, the actual infrastructure that's changing underneath that supports all that, we're ready for that. We're ready for the changes that are coming, and we have a plan, and we have a national view of that, and we develop a situation that we can describe to you as the local authorities and suppliers about what we think the future looks like, and that's all absolutely essential as well. And then, of course, we heard about CSA. We heard about developing a connected services architecture, a call to arms to get us to understand, again, in a wider sense, what do we still need to do? What do we need to put into place? Because really what we want to do is we want to start delivering the services that we had Luke and Menno from the Netherlands talking about yesterday, both who spoke impeccably in better English than I'll ever manage, about where we could get to, about what Helmand's achieved, what Helmand, through being visionary and being really committed to this kind of technology for many years, what they've achieved. And I learned two things there. We learned that with commitment, you can deliver services that people use. We learned that actually this stuff can work and can make a difference and can actually save you the cost of building a new fire station, for example, or doing lots of other things, for example. And we learned that the technology is there. If the framework is in place, as it clearly is in the Netherlands, then innovators like Monarch can build systems that work upon that. We learned that. We also learned the value of moving beyond pilots. And again, I think that's something that we're not particularly good at in the UK. We do get stuck in pilots. And I think some of the things we're going to talk about today, some of the things around the Intelligent Traffic Management Fund, are trying to move beyond that, trying to move to an at-scale solution. And if you read the guidance around ITMF, you will see the word at-scale mentioned a few times, because really, that's an attempt on the part of DFT to do that, to get people to deliver things at a larger scale and maybe start to see some of the things that are happening over there in the Netherlands actually delivered here. So that really was what we did in the first part of yesterday, and I think that was very interesting. And of course, after that, we heard about what the TTF working groups are doing, and I think for me, they are the engine rooms of the TTF. A lot of the things we've just talked about, a lot of the areas where DFT is working, the way that one of the ways that we will introduce that to the sector, get the sector involved, get the help of the sector to move those things forward, is around the working groups. So I say this every time we meet, but if there are any areas you are interested in, and I hope there are, please join the relevant working group. If you are particularly interested in the future of UTMC, join that group. If you're particularly interested in data, there's a group for that. Connected vehicles, the other groups, join one of the groups. We have lots of groups. And something else I mentioned yesterday, which we're going to hear about today, which Kerry is going to talk about, is the formation of a site to allow us to share information about suppliers and innovators. And Kerry's going to talk about that a bit later. It won't quite be like Tinder, I'm pleased to say. I know there's now great rumours about how well I know Tinder, and I expect next time I open it to have hundreds of new requests from in this room. If the amount of traffic I've seen on LinkedIn is anything to go by, I just can't wait. But I'll do that once I've got my other phone turned on, my secret one. No, but seriously though, the whole point of doing that is to start to provide that place where innovators and traditional suppliers can work together, because we know that's difficult. We know that we know that innovators tell us that it seems like a great sector, but it's very hard to get into. It's very hard to work out where the money is. It's very hard to work out what the proposition should be and how you supply. It's very hard to get local authorities to understand how to procure, how to build innovation. We understand that, and that's something else I think that the TTF hasn't done a lot of in the past, but increasingly we will do in the future. And this work around bringing this information together into a web page is the start of that. Is the start of us, again, using that same ethos. It's not about us trying to describe the sector. It's not about us trying to govern who works with who and be any kind of gatekeeper. It's not our job. But we feel this is an area where, as with similar data standards, we need to intervene, and only TTF really can intervene in this space, to start to convene people, to start to put people in the right virtual rooms, to form the consortia, to ensure that we continue to deliver really high quality, really reliable, effective traffic management, as we do now, from the suppliers that supply that, but that we can layer on that the innovation, the new technologies, the new services, the new ways of working that we know are coming. And one final point before we move on that I'd like to make is a thing that came out from a few presentations yesterday that I hope many of you picked up on is there's a kind of kink-and-newt thing here, in that as the sector we would like to think we can stand and demand the tide doesn't come in, but we can't. The users will do that. The purchasers will do that. I think, Michael, you talked about that. You talked about however complex and big our ecosystem is, it's dwarfed by the size of the user base. And increasingly we will see that. Increasingly we will people see buying cars with technology in them. We'll see suppliers competing not on how many cylinders or valves or what the capacity of the engine is. They will be competing on the services that their vehicles offer. That will be the choice in vehicles in the future. That's coming. People are doing that. People will buy apps. People will develop apps. People will, as has happened with things like real-time trains in the rail sector, and has happened in the past with people like Citymapper, very clever people out there will take data that we publish and do new things with it, and develop apps that suddenly become useful and very, very important and very, very, very reliable that we never had any involvement in. So we have to constantly be aware that the world will change, and we can't sit around. We can't go, right, actually, it's going to take us 6 months to think about this. If we could all just stop, and then in 6 months' time, we'll come back with an answer, and we can move on. It won't be like that. That's not how the world is. So we have to constantly be remembering that. And that's a challenge, because that means that we need to work at pace. We need to say what we need to say and build those standards and do the things we need to do quickly, because the market moves quickly. But it's also an opportunity, because a lot of the things that we might want to do, we don't need to deliver ourselves. We just need to make the right connections and plug the right things and set the right policies, and then the market will go off and do a lot of the things we want to do. If we set the right environment, people will do it. And I'm absolutely sure NPP is an example of that. I am absolutely sure that 10 years from now, NPP will be like paying for the underground using your card is today. The thought of actually going to a ticket machine and buying a ticket with coins to get on an underground train. Well, I think dinosaurs were still roaming the planet when we did that. It's just such a expected way that the system works. I'm sure in 5 years' time, parking will be the same. Not because we've mandated it, but because we've set the standards, and the market will then deliver it, because it is clearly a better way of doing things. I think we need to remember that in all the things that we do. If it's good, it will happen. And we might end up holding the tails of tigers as technology races off, but we should be doing that. That's the thing that we should be doing. So, that's where we are. So this morning we're going to start off with some as I say, some presentations around particular supplier technologies. So and basically what I've asked to do, and I set this challenge about a month or two ago. I asked the four main suppliers into the sector, so TRL, Unix, Swarco, and Telent. And I asked them, I said, you can have a slot, because it's very likely that many of the ITMF bids will be built around your technology. That's the way it will be. So you can each have a slot to come and talk about your innovation. But the challenge is you have to bring an innovator up onto stage with you. Because you can't just talk about what your technology does. You have to talk about how you can work with innovators. Because as I say, that will be the difference between good and very good when it comes to ITMF bids. So I'd like to start that process now. And I'd like to ask TRL to come to the stage, please. And I would like you to bring your innovator and introduce them. And you're not allowed to kick each other, or you've got to play nicely and show that you can collaborate. And tell us what you can do for ITMF. Thank you.